But like nothing alarming, nothing like, bitch, get ready to go. Going like this, and I'm like starting to moo. While he's pulling over, I'm ripping off my seatbelt. I'm talking, if he hadn't been able to pull over. I'm not sure how straight that is, and I don't know if I have time to care. But welcome back to my channel, you guys. This is the first video I'm filming being postpartum. This whole story is insane, and I'm so excited to tell it. And every time I tell it, it's just so funny. I can't believe that this happened to me. So this is a story about the time I gave birth in my car. I want to preface this by saying I am not a natural birther. I'm not a home birther. I am very much like, give me the epidural. That was kind of the only part of my birth plan. Like, general idea of what I wanted when I gave birth to this kid was give me the epidural. It's kind of all I want. That was it. That was the birth plan. So I'm going to start you guys out right in the beginning because it was crazy. So the day before I gave birth, I had an appointment at my OBGYN office, and I wanted to get a check, but they wouldn't check me because a lot of my information from my previous OBGYN did get sent over, so they couldn't do one, whatever. But he did end up doing a check for something else, and he said it still looked like I was only 2 centimeters dilated, which is what they told me 2 weeks prior, and I was like, whatever, okay, cool. And there were really no signs of labor that I recognized going on that day. So I went home, gave my son a bath, we snuggled, everything was normal. I went to bed that night, a little disappointed, but whatevs. And at this point, we had our bags ready to go in the car for the baby, myself, my husband, and my son. And I kind of knew going into this kid, because we're, I think, technically still in a panini. So I was like, I probably will birth by myself, but that's fine, honestly. That was not my concern. My biggest concern was that my first son was happy during this whole time while I was probably going to be away. So that was my main thing, was him being happy. So I planned on him being home with my husband, but just in case, we had bags packed for the hospital for everyone. And so I went to bed, and then I woke up around like 5:30 in the morning, I want to say. And like my whole labor was like an hour and a half. Okay. With my first son, my labor is pretty short. It started around 8 in the morning, and I think I gave birth around like 2 in the afternoon, I want to say. So pretty fast, pretty nice. And that's like labor start to finish. Pretty good. What more can you ask for, especially for a first timer? Hello. And so this birth was only an hour and a half. And I don't think anybody could have planned for that. So that morning I woke up, I would assume maybe around like 4:30 or 5, and I went to go use the bathroom. I couldn't fall back asleep, which isn't abnormal for, third trimester kind of stuff. And so I was like, whatever. So I was just scrolling on my phone, hoping to get tired. And before you say anything, looking at my phone does help me go to sleep. It gets me nice and tired because I don't do it with my glasses. My eyes get tired and then I go to sleep. So that was the plan. And I couldn't go to sleep, and then I felt like I need to use the bathroom again. But nothing strong, nothing serious, nothing that said, oh, maybe this is labor, nothing. I was completely clueless. And so I went to use the bathroom, and then I had a number 2, and it was a little soft, but nothing like with my first son. So I didn't think anything of it. I wasn't like, oh, this is diarrhea. Here we go. Like nothing. So I used the bathroom, and then I got back in bed, and then I was like, oof, I had a contraction, but I wasn't quite sure if it was a real contraction or Braxton Hicks because I'd been having those before. But then I felt it like during the contraction, it felt a little bit more serious. And I'm not sure how to make that make sense for people who haven't given birth before, felt contractions before. I don't know how to explain it, but when you know, not really. This is my second go around. And I also want to say that nobody gaslights myself harder than myself, okay? So especially during contractions, because in between you're like, oh, like I'm fine. No, I don't think that was a real contraction. I'm fine. Not a big deal. Not alarming. Well, I gave it till the second one came, and that was probably minutes later. Like I'm talking like less than 5 minutes later. And I felt another one, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a shower, because that's what the midwife I had last seen told me. She said, okay, like when labor starts, you want to take a shower, get ready to go to the hospital because things could go quicker. But like nothing alarming, nothing like, get ready to go. Okay, get ready to go, because the hospital was, I think 40 minutes to an hour away, depending on traffic. So I was like, okay, so maybe like, yeah, like I'll shower and then we'll just go. That was my plan. Because I was like, in my mind, I still would probably have a couple hours to go through labor and whatnot. So that was my mentality going into it. So I woke my husband up. I said, hey, like, I think this is it. Like, I think it's time. Feed yourself, get our first son ready to go. I'm going to take a shower and then we'll go. He's like, okay. And so I get in the shower and they started getting closer together. And I'm like, let me get back out. So I get out and I'm rushing. I'm like, I need to eat something because this is getting a little freaky, because they weren't contractions where I was like, oh, still washing my hair through it, still bleeding through it. Like, I'm talking like had to take a break and breathe through it. But didn't think, oh, I need to call an ambulance or anything like that. It was just like, okay, like I don't remember how it felt exactly last time. So I don't know. And I'm just like, we got to go. So I come out, my husband's getting our first son and the bag's in the car, everything ready to go. I'm cramming yogurt in my face so I have some semblance of energy to give birth. And we head out and we're in the car and everything's like okay, as okay as it can be when you're in labor. And I'm just praying there's no traffic on the way to the hospital. Well, we make it about 20 minutes there. Yeah, because we were about halfway there. And at this point, oh yeah, and I put my loop, I got these loop earbuds for Christmas, and I put these in before we got in the car because sound can be very, very overstimulating and agitating and irritating to me. So I put those in knowing that there's going to be sounds along the way and it's going to help me just focus on myself, the whole situation. And so I had my earbuds in, but they were no longer helping the situation. And it's at the point where I'm like, I'm sitting in my seat like this, like I'm trying to get out of the seat, but like still have my seatbelt on. Okay, don't freak out. But I'm like going like this and I'm like starting to moo. Okay, when you start mooing, I guess that means it's getting serious, time to go to the hospital. That's all I know, okay? And this is not medical advice. And please listen to your healthcare practitioners and all that. Listen to your body. Listen to the healthcare practitioners. Please, thank you. This is not advice of any kind. This is just what happened to me. And there was no way we could have prepared better, I guess, for this. Because we were bing, bang, bop out the door, like... there was really nothing we could have done. I'm starting to get like this, and we make it to where like I can see, we live by the water and I can see like, the water's outside in between contractions, but it's like the in between. I'm not sure because I wasn't timing it anymore. I was timing it while we were still at home, but the contractions where it felt like they were back to back. Like there was no break in between really, because there was still like a whisper of pain in between. And if you've never had contractions before, for me, this is like, it felt like they come and go like this. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe that makes sense if you've had contractions before, but it felt like this. But it was still like a little in between contractions. And I'm telling my husband, like, drive faster. But I can also see that there are too many cars. There's no weaving in traffic. There's no going faster. There's nothing he could have done. And that wouldn't have been safe anyway, whatever. And he's like, you got this, honey, like cheering me on. And I'm like, you want to see something real crazy? And it's hilarious because I'm not the person who likes to be cheered on. And like, what do you do in that situation? There's no right or wrong thing to say, right? Like, how do you help someone in the middle of labor? I don't know. My husband didn't really know. And so he's doing his best. My son's in the back roasting me this whole time. Like all the sounds I'm making, he's making them as well. Like the whole scene is hilarious now that it's over and we can look back on it. And all of a sudden I realize that something is happening down there and I don't exactly know what, because I didn't epidural with my first son. So I didn't feel like, I didn't know what the feelings were that were going on down there. I didn't know what crowning felt like, the ring of fire. I didn't know any of that. And plus, I had no urge to push. People talk about when you have the urge to push, and I was like, okay, maybe if I have the urge to push, I'm thinking this in the car, then I will not push. I will hold it, because that sounded like more of a mental thing. So I'm like, okay, I'll just hold it till we get to the hospital. We had 20 more minutes to go. And I'm telling myself, where's the urge to push? Because I'm going to tell myself not to push. And I realize altogether in that moment that I am not going to make it to the hospital. So I tell my husband, I am not going to make it. You need to pull over. And he's like, shit. Okay. And so we pull over into some random parking lot. And I'm not going to say where because I don't like to put my personal life out there. But the location was hilarious. That's all I'm gonna say. The location was hilarious. And it was right off of a busy road. And I'm just, so we pull over, and while he's pulling over, I'm ripping off my seatbelt. I'm talking, if he hadn't been able to pull over, I wanted to jump out of the car. Not in a self-harm kind of way. I am not a self-harmer. I do not encourage that. Please don't do that. But that's how I felt. Was I wanted the pain to stop. Like, it hurt so bad. And I'm jumping out of my skin at this point. So while he's pulling over, I'm ripping off my seatbelt. I'm falling apart. And he pulls into the parking lot, and I turn around because in my head, I wanted to try different birthing positions, and I had one really special one that I wanted to try. And I knew that, it might not work out with an epidural because you kind of have to like hold yourself up, and that can be hard when you have an epidural and you don't know where your body is. And I had no control over my lower half. Like, it was just me, my arms, and my head when I gave birth to my son. So I knew going into it that I might not get my position, whatever. But guess what? Your girl got her wish because, I didn't get an epidural because, they don't just give you that in the car on the way to the hospital, teehee. So I flipped myself around in the seat, and I'm going to try to show you guys, I guess. And this is not medical advice. This is just part of my funny haha story. And if there's marks on my butt, that's because I got a cushion because my tailbone hurt so bad. And so I'm sitting in the car like this, and I think everybody assumes this is how I give birth. I gave birth in my car. That is not how I gave birth in my car. That would have been a tragedy. I gave birth like this. So we're pulling over, mind you. I'm ripping my seatbelt off as we go. He's pulling in, and I'm turning around like this, okay? And I'm holding on to the headrest things, like the metal things. I'm holding on to those. And that is how I push the baby out. This little boy, oh my God. He's so perfect. So I'm turning around, and at this point, while all of that is happening, his head is already out. Okay? I'm ripping off my seatbelt. My husband's pulling into the parking lot. I'm turning around. This kid's head is already out. And there is no thinking except like me in primal mama bear mode. And I feel like I was yelling. I probably was yelling. I should ask my husband, but I guarantee I was yelling because I'm a yeller. And so I turn around, and we are past mooing. Like, there is something's about to happen. I don't know what, and I don't know fuck all about natural birthing. I don't know anything about anything other than this is the position I wanted to try. I didn't know how to deliver a baby. My husband didn't know how to deliver a baby. None of this. No one delivered my baby. He delivered himself into my pants. So I turn over in this position. Right after I get into position, I am screaming my face off. And I'm telling you, like, when I think back to it, like, when everything's quiet at night and I'm trying to sleep, it pops back into my head, and I have to force it out of my head. The sounds I was making, like the type of yell when the baby was coming out, because there was no pushing. Like, I was not pushing at all. Not once, not ever during this birth was I pushing. Like, he was just coming out. So, and I think that's called the fetal ejection reflex, something like that. So I believe that is what happened. So he is pushing himself out, like he's coming out. And so it was 2 contractions, his head coming out, me flipping around, and him falling out. And this whole time I have my pants on, like my sweatpants and my shirt that I was wearing. I turn around, he plops into my pants. I'm in, this position. So don't worry. He didn't like hit his head or anything. He literally, I gave birth in my pants, you guys. Oh yeah. So, and we're pulling in, and I'm like, call the police. And so he calls 911 on the phone, and they're telling him what to do and whatnot. And they're like, he's like, no, she's giving birth right now. Like, the baby's coming right now. And he's telling where we are. They're sending EMTs, and they came really fast. I'm talking like 7 minutes. I felt like it was like, so he falls out into my pants, and I'm screaming like, grab him. And the look on my husband's face when I told him to get the baby out of my pants was hilarious. Like, I have never seen in my entire life more raw and real shock on someone's face. Just like, what? You want me to, but also like, he's handling it. He's got everything under control, but also what? want, because who in their lifetime thinks that someone is going to say those words to them and then they have to do it? Like, what in the world? And also, I don't think I pooped myself. And so my husband grabs him out of my pants and he's fine. Like the 911 on the phone is telling him what to do, and he's checking to make sure he's breathing. Like, he's okay, I'm okay. And I'm still like holding like this because I have like no idea what's gonna happen next. You know, I didn't know how the whole, like, what happens when you deliver the placenta. Like, do I have to push again? Is there gonna be more contractions? I was scared. And so I'm still like frozen holding on to this. And then like he's saying, you know, I hear him telling them that he's okay and I'm okay. And I'm like, okay. And so I like sit back down in the seat. And then we had extra blankets in the car, like little baby blankets, because it's kind of cold here in Florida right now. So, you know, we planned for that and had extra blankets. He's grabbing blankets, we're putting him on the baby, and I hold him and like the cord's still connected. And that feeling, guys, I don't ever want to feel that again. Like that, you know, when you think about it now, it's like, oh, so cute. Like we're, you know, still connected and, you know, hooray, hooray, delayed cord clamping. I mean, that wasn't really something I'd looked into, but, you know, that happened, I guess, because they didn't clip it until, like, they did the little tie thing when the EMTs got there. But again, that's from me giving birth to whenever they got there. So that's that. I don't really have a stance on that though, because I don't know enough about it, but I know that's something that free birthers are into. And the feeling of the cord being like hanging out there, it was not a good time. Okay. And so the EMTs show up, and I've never been happier to see an ambulance in my life. And this is also my first ambulance ride. Teehee. So they open the door and I'm right there and they're like, oh my God, she's okay. And so I'm holding the baby at this point. And I don't know where my husband, like my son, he was such an angel when I was like that final push. He was just quiet, watching what's happening. And keep in mind, I did not, when I was giving birth to my son, it was very sad that my whole family couldn't be there because that was in the beginning of the panini. But then with this kid, I planned on birthing alone, because also I was like kind of fighting with myself on like, who knows how it'll go, and I don't want to traumatize my first kid. Like, what if things went wrong, you know? Well, luckily things went great and he's not traumatized, I think. I think he's okay because he was just quietly watching, and when I saw him in the hospital later, he seemed completely fine, excited to see us, and it was all fun and fresh, good time. So the EMTs come, and at this point, I'd pulled my pants down. Like when I was telling him, grab him, like I literally pulled my pants off. Like they're at my knees. And so I'm sitting in this back in my seat now. My pants are like at my ankles, and I don't care about anything. Nothing matters anymore, like in a good way. Like nothing matters. I'm not freaking out. Nobody's freaking out. Everything is like so at peace, but I'm very like stiff because I'm like, the placenta's still in there, we're still connected. It's not comfy cozy, it's cold, and I'm wet. Everything is wet now, and that's not my favorite feeling. Cold and wet is probably my least favorite feeling in the entire world. And so we're sitting there and they're like, hi, like, how are you? Like, where's the cord? They're clamping it. They're making sure we're both breathing and okay. And they're like, okay, like, we're going to get you onto the stretcher. And in my head, I'm like, I'm just going to like get up out of the car and get on the stretcher. Like, I don't care. Okay. When you give birth in the car, when you give birth, period, actually, because I cannot be the only mom who feels this way. You just don't care about your modesty anymore. We're out, all of that. Like, nothing matters. It does not matter in those moments or right after. Like, who cares? Modesty, who don't know her. And I'm not the most modest queen, as you guys probably already know. But I don't go out of my way to be immodest. Exactly. So I'm about to get out of the car and they're like, oh my God, do you have a blanket? They were asking me if I had a blanket for myself. And I was like, no, like, I don't. And they had this big towel. And so it was so sweet. Like how much they cared about my modesty. I thought it was so cute and just so nice because I just did not care. So they're putting like the towel around me, like trying to hold my pants up. And I'm like, I don't want my pants back on. And this whole time, you guys, I didn't know that my underwear was still on, which is just hilarious. And so they're putting the towel around me, like trying to make sure like nobody can see anything. And in my head, I'm just like, this is hilarious. I hope I don't end up on the news because I'm not someone who likes to have my family life so publicized. So I'm just like, I don't want to make the news. And there were already women in my due date group who had given birth in their car. And we had joked about that because, you know, that happens to other people. But of course, something like that happens to me because if you don't know me from real life, things like that do happen to me. So I'm not sure why I thought that I was excluded from that. I don't know why. I should have planned for that, honestly, because crazy things like that do happen to me constantly. Like, that is how my life goes. And so they get me onto the stretcher. We get in the ambulance, and my husband and our first son, they're behind the ambulance. We go to the hospital, and the guy was so nice, the EMT that was in with us. He took a picture of us in the ambulance. He's talking to us. We're getting all the information down. He was like, do you feel the placenta coming out? And I was like, no, should I? He's like, no, but it's probably going to come out real soon, because I guess that happens real soon after giving birth. I was like, do I have to push it out? And he's like, you can. If you feel like you need to push, you can push it out. And I'm like, do I have to? Can you just go get it? Like, I don't want to feel that, because I know it's going to be ushy gushy, not a good time. And I don't want to feel any more contractions. So I'm just like, I don't want to feel any more discomfort. Can it just come out already? And he's like, we're not going to pull it out. Like, that's not how that's done. And I'm like, okay. So I'm still like rigid, because I'm basically like, I'm going to hold it in until we get to the hospital, because I don't want to feel that. And we're in a moving car and everything's jiggling, you know, I don't know. Everything is just jiggling, and it doesn't feel nice. I'll just say that. And eventually we get to the hospital, and they're two doctors or nurses, I don't remember which, they come into the ambulance. And I should say that when we first got in the car to head to the hospital, I called them, because you're supposed to call L&D ahead of time and let them know you're on the way. And I told him, like, hi, I'm having, like, whatever the 511 rules, whatever that was. I was like, I'm having that. We're on the way. We're about 40 minutes away, or 40 to 60 minutes away. And she was like, okay, we'll be ready. So they knew I was coming. They didn't know that when they got the call that there was an ambulance on the way, that person was me. And they're asking me all sorts of questions. And I'm just trying to answer the best I can. But keep in mind, I am still, like, the adrenaline is pumping and stuff, but I'm still in shock of what just happened to me. Like, I think it took me probably the first 2 weeks to even process what happened. Like, I kept replaying it, but it felt like it was a dream. Like, I couldn't believe that this was actually my life right now. And if you hear sounds, my son is eating right now. So that's what those gurgly, silly boy sounds are. So they're wheeling us in through the emergency department, and it seemed what was the whole staff there that day was standing there staring at me and my newborn son. And I might put myself out there on YouTube these days, but I don't even like people singing me happy birthday, because they sing it at you. Like, I don't like that kind of in-person attention. No, thank you. And so they're all looking at us and, like, beaming. Like, they look excited to see me. And I just look back down, because I was like, oh, what? Why is everyone looking at us? Like, I can't imagine why. So I just look back down at my newborn, and they get us into the room and stuff, and they're telling us, like, how it's going to go, what's going to happen. Everyone's like, you know, we're all chatting about, that was so crazy. Oh my God. Like, girl, what? And I'm telling them, like, yeah, labor started an hour and a half ago. And I did as I was told. I got in the shower, I got ready, and then we left. Like, that was the plan. And the plan was not to give birth in my car. I am not, that was not the plan. And I am not someone who's like, oh, I just birthed at home. No. They delivered the placenta, and the main nurse for the first whole day we were there, he's like, you know what's so funny about this whole situation? And I was like, what? And keep in mind, my earplugs are still in. And he says, you know what's funny about this whole thing? And I was like, what? And he was like, your glasses were on the entire time. Because we're looking through the photos that my husband had taken that right after I gave birth and all that. He's like, your glasses are still on your head. And I was like, that is so fucking funny. Because the whole time, like, imagine giving birth in your glass, like, no epidural, in your car, and your glasses are still on your head. Hello? What is that? My life, apparently. And I guess it is true what the people in the crunchy cult say when they had natural births, that they recover quicker. Because I felt great. Obviously, I felt like a little sore down there, but the adrenaline didn't wear off till probably closer to noon. And by that time, my husband and son had come and they came to see us, and they let them in the room, which was great because I was not expecting them to be allowed in the room at all. And they were, and it was such a precious moment when I saw them walk through the door and they came to see us. That was amazing and very special to me. And then the rest of the day, we spent one night there, which was great because I really just wanted to go home after that. But obviously they have to monitor me and the baby, and we both got discharged at the same time. So like, yes. And I think overall, we got really lucky because while some people don't consider birth to be a medical event, I kind of do. I'm very much like trust medical professionals. I also like to verify, trust but verify. That is my policy. But in general, like I always wanted to birth in a hospital just in case anything goes wrong. I am right there, and it's like a better situation for everyone to get the help that could be needed. And it was, I think, maybe like a week ago, I saw this video of like this mom and her newborn baby. They put the baby on her chest, and I was like, oh my God, that baby's head looks so weird. And I guess the baby had gotten stuck in the birth canal. And I'm thinking, comparing this to my situation, I don't think that's always like bad. I don't really know anything about that. But the baby's head was like really long, like in the back, like it was a situation. And I was like, wow, I'm really lucky that didn't happen to me. Because if the baby got stuck in the birth canal on the way to the hospital, I feel like that could have gone really, really, like in a really scary direction. So I feel like we got really lucky there. Baby is perfect and healthy, right on track. He's amazing. And I think we both got really lucky there. And my recovery has been a breeze. Like that day we went home, which was the following day after giving birth, because we got there right in the morning, was easy. Like I was up walking around, obviously sleeping mostly, but up walking around, and I was able to use the bathroom and take care of myself and all that. And all of this happened without any need for stitches. So no tears. Which also, again, really lucky. My second time around, no tears. Both these boys were so good to me, and I'm so grateful for that. So while like we're doing all of the recovery stuff, the placenta's delivered, everyone is left except it's like me, the nurse, and I think my husband and my son were still there at this time. And he's like, do you want to keep these pants? And I was like, no, sir. And they're like, haha, your husband's having to go clean the car and whatnot. And I'm like, that's fine. Like, I really don't care. Like, nothing matters. They were disgusting. But also, I texted my husband after he and my son had gone home, and I was like, hey. And I was like, how bad was it? Like, how bad did the car look? And he's like, honestly, not that bad. And I was like, awesome. Because my pants apparently caught most of the, the fluids, which was great. So we threw those away. But I kept the t-shirt. And we had also put over the baby blankets we had put my MSU sweatshirt over him to like add extra warmth. And so I kept the sweatshirt and the t-shirt that I was wearing. And we're gonna keep those forever. I did accidentally leave behind the baby blankets though in the ambulance. Right before my husband and my son leave, I realized I don't have my phone. And so we're looking all over the room. Well, my husband is looking all over the room, and we're like, oh my God, where could it be? They're checking the dirty, like linens, bins, like everything. And in that moment, I realized there is a very real possibility that my phone is no longer with us. But again, nothing really matters anymore. I'm like, well, I guess I just won't have one then. But I remember that on the drive here, when we did the big move, I shared my location with people. So I had my husband text one of those people, and they're like, it's moving. Like, we can see where your phone is, and it's moving. And I'm like, oh my God, it's definitely still in the ambulance. And so my husband talks to the staff, and like they figure out how we're gonna get my phone back. And they were so kind and so speedy. And I think they brought it to me in the room probably by like 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And I was so excited because, again, I didn't really need any entertainment. Like, there was a TV in there. And again, like, it's still processing what had just happened. But yeah, they brought it really fast. And I was so happy and so excited because, again, they had that first photo on my phone that the EMT had taken in the ambulance. And I remember he had told me in the ambulance, oh, I'm putting your phone over here, like so I would know where he put it. And I just, when you give birth in your car and you taking the little ambulance ride, you don't really think about, where's my phone? Like, to do what? Like, I'm not exactly going to hop on Instagram. And this time I didn't get the shakes. I got the shakes so bad with my first son. And it was so freaky and so weird. And I don't know if it had anything to do with the epidural. I don't remember. And mentally, this time around, I am on medication and have been for, I think, the past year. But I think that plus the supplements that were approved by my OBGYN and the fertility specialist that I was seeing before getting pregnant and while being pregnant, I think those like helped both. Plus knowing what I'm doing this time around other than free birthing in my car. And so, like, what did I learn from this experience? No one asked, but I'm going to talk about it because I love this story. It's just so funny. So what did I learn from this experience? I learned that my husband and I are done having kids, done AF, but if for some reason I did get pregnant again, if I felt the slightest anything in the third trimester, I'm at the hospital. I'm driving to the hospital. I'm going. I'm there. But also preparing for the very real possibility that there would be a home birth. Get a midwife and or a doula. Would those be the same thing? I don't really know. But I'd look into those and have those on call, ready to be at my house. And I also sort of relearned that giving birth is without an epidural, especially, with an epidural, I was like, no one can tell me shit now. Like, you cannot tell me shit. I've given birth. I've created life. But now, after doing it even without an epidural, I'm like, you definitely can't tell me shit. Like, you can tell me even less shit now after giving birth in my car without an epidural and somehow everything being fine, which is more, I would like to caution people, is more just me getting lucky. But yeah, that is the most badass thing I think I've ever done, and it was like more happenstance. It was not planned. That was not the plan. The plan was to go to the hospital, get an epidural. It's a fun and fresh time. Birth alone, if they won't allow my husband and my son there, and I mentally prepared for that beforehand, so I was okay with that and made peace with that. And then call my husband to come pick me up, and then we go home and everything's fine. That was how I thought it was gonna go. And that is not at all how it went, but they did get to come to the hospital and see us. And I was really grateful for that. And that was a very magical moment. And yeah, if I'm forgetting anything, I will edit that in. And you guys will see editing Melanie. But yeah, that is the time I gave birth in my car. I did not make the news. I did Google it after because my mom called me later that day while I was still in the hospital. And she's like, oh my God, did you make the news? And I was like, no. The only other person other than the EMTs that I saw was like a truck, I guess, so they could stop traffic so you could get out, because again, it was a busy road. I think that's what it was for anyway. But that was all I saw. It was really early in the morning. So now at this point, I am feeling good, feeling great. I'm doing stuff around the house. I'm doing my postpartum core workouts to help with, I'm not sure how to say it, diastasis, I'm not sure, where your abs separate and you do breathing exercises, really gentle and safe exercises postpartum. I'm doing those and I feel really good. And also, I think you guys have at this point definitely seen all the videos that I filmed right before giving birth, which is just so funny because the Melanie in that videos had no idea. Just that girl was clueless as to how everything was going to go. Clueless. And I think it's funny because I think maybe this baby did somewhat, on some level, understand when me, my husband, and my son would talk to the baby when he was still in my tummy and tell him to GTFO. And I guess this kid took that very literally and said, bet, I'm going to come out flying. I don't really have a serious timeline on when I'll be getting regular uploads. My hope right now is to get just one video out a week. I think that's pretty manageable for this whole situation. And yeah, I feel ready to do that because there's a lot of stuff that got backed up and happened in between when I wasn't able to film anymore and now. And I still want to talk about it. Even if people consider it old news, I still want to talk about it because it's still juicy, it's still interesting. And yeah, I still want to get that out. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you find this entertaining. If you have questions for me, leave them in the comments, and if I feel comfortable, I will answer them. If there's enough questions, I'll probably end up doing a Q&A because it'll be faster, I feel like, to answer it that way, and better quality answers, I guess. Thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around and being patient with me as we figure out the new routine with 2 kids. And I will see you in the next one.